They brought their cat into the.
There he is.
They were worried you weren't going to show.
I put an APB
Yeah, George was concerned.
Chief Lichty was just ready to call in some help to go look and
APB or
something like that.
We were trying to find something that you may have worn so the bloodhounds would know. But.
man on the run or.
No, not yet. I run very fast anyway.
We got any bloodhounds available?
I have two that I don't know. They like to follow their nose, but I don't think they know what they're looking for.
They know. They just don't want you to know.
Their flow stripples instead.
No.
Official one.
It's 6:27.
You sure?
Almost 6:28.
Can you tell?
Yep.
Because I looked a little while ago and it said 6:27. So yeah, see now it's 6:28.
We weren't at your wife, what you call it at on Sunday?
What you call
We
it?
can just now start to see
The Hampton side of the family with all of Brian Court.
I was there for a while. Then Chris and I went home, and then Chris realized that she forgot her key to O'Brien Court and to work. So she had to go back. That's probably what it was.
I'm going to be able to sign it, but that's not the case.
Oh,
We're just going to have to get some of the councilmen to sign it for the next two.
Okay.
Because they
Oh, I
wanted
was
two
there for a
signatures
while.
specifically on that one. I don't know why.
We'd gone out to the
You know what I'm talking about?
the small cities one or what?
Yeah.
Yeah?
How was it?
This one,
We took Eleanor along with us, so.
side. Let's go this way, shall we?
Marilyn?
Yeah, Marilyn? Yeah, I tell her Mrs. Ann, get that one.
it's not a right, but it can't find me yet. That's what they were
This
saying.
one is not two. So just, it doesn't.
Just one of the council members.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, lady.
Yeah, usually it's dead.
Jan, shut that off.
We'll find you pretty soon.
Oh, no.
No,
No, I'll sign here.
Tom will sign
I'll
here.
sign here.
Okay.
And then
Tom will
Tom,
sign
and then
here.
one of the councilmen.
We're ready to go, but
All right.
we're not ready
It would be
to
the
go.
mayor but and Tom, but she's not here, so let's do something else.
Do you get some crazy little
She was when you
No?
Welcome to our regular scheduled Tracy City Council meeting. It's Monday, April 10th, 2023, 6 p.m. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. 6:30. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I wasn't sure how warm.
I do it little I can.
I would entertain approval of the agenda.
Motion approved.
I'd second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing.
We need to, the first, what we have today is a public hearing on what we heard last week, the small cities grant application. This is a required public hearing. So what we need to do today is open the public hearing. Jeff has some things that he's supposed to read into the record. Close the public hearing after you've asked for any comment from anyone. If there's any comment from anyone in the audience, they can speak, and then after we close the public hearing, adopt these two resolutions. Okay. Assuming that you want to adopt the resolutions. You can, of course, deny the resolutions as well.
All right. So we'll begin the open meeting. Jeff.
I won't be the only one here tonight. We also have a guest from UCAP also. His name is Jeff also. There's all kinds of Jeffs around here. I'm going to read half of this since it's more or less a statement. Same thing that we went over just a couple of weeks ago. Just during the public hearing, they have to go through a few paragraphs here, and then he's gonna finish up, and then we can answer any kind of extra questions that you might have. Okay? We are targeting the completion of 20 low to moderate income housing rehabilitation projects. The average and maximum SCDP owner-occupied loan would be $25,000. Financing would be 100% SCDP. Deferred loan and matching sources would be accessed for households with projects exceeding $25,000. Leveraged sources could include Minnesota Housing Finance Agency funds, weatherization funds, energy-related repair funds, city funds, bank financing, owner funds, and other sources. The loans would be a 0% 10-year deferred loan and 1/10 of the loan forgiven each year that the client complies with the small cities development plan or project guidelines, which would be living in the house for 10 years. We are targeting.
What is the amount?
Go. I'm sorry.
What is the amount?
$25,000.
Thank you.
It can go over that, and other funds would come in from the possibility of us, remember, anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 for loans. But then UCAP also throws in, if there's a project that meets the requirements, it might be age, might be lesser of an income, whatever, where they would do some weatherization projects with that same house that we wouldn't be responsible for, but it would take care of the house if they see a need.
And the $5,000 to $7,000 is a loan?
It's
that
a
they
loan.
would repay?
And they
not
would
forgive
repay.
it?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
At
Absolutely.
a significantly lower interest.
1%. Yep. We try to keep the payments a little bit under $100 for sure, and then that just keeps it, it's
Manageable.
You get manageable then. Yeah. We don't like them too low because then they stretch out. In fact, we just had one, of course a little bit, but we had one that just got paid and it was 13 years old here just not too long ago. It's just too long, but I don't want them too short where it becomes hard to handle.
Is there a maximum number? Is it 25,000, but you said you could
Well,
kick in more?
we've seen a couple projects on the last one that we just closed out in this past October that went $32,000, $33,000. That would have been $4,000 or $5,000 loan from us, and then maybe some other funds. Weatherization one that comes to mind because UCAP does a great job in town here, even if we don't have one of these going on for weatherization.
If I would request that we hold questions to the end because Jeff has to read this into the record to make it official. So if we can let him do that, and then the other Jeff, our third Jeff, speak, and then I'm sure he'd be happy to answer questions at the end. Thank you.
We are targeting the completion of 12 commercial buildings in downtown Tracy. The average and maximum small cities development program commercial loan would be $40,000. Financing would be 80%. Small Cities Development Program funding up to a maximum of $40,000. 87.5% of that funding would be forgiven over a 7-year span. 12.5% would be a 2% interest loan that would be paid back over a maximum of 5 years. Matching sources would most likely be bank financing, owner funds, and other leverage sources. For each commercial project, there's 12.5% of the Small Cities Development Program funds are paid back to the city of Tracy. These funds can be used in future or projects that fall under the same category later down the road. The owner-occupied target area is citywide this year. If you remember from years before, there was always specific areas. Now it is going this year, or this particular grant, if it's given to us, is going to be citywide. The commercial target is an area from Roland to South Street and 2nd Street to 4th Street, just in the uptown area or downtown area. The overall budget is $1,447,000, of which $1,127,000 are grant dollars. Tracy will be investing $20,000 towards grant administration and approximately $60,000 to $70,000 towards low-interest loans of some of the projects that go over the amount that because if they're needed, that's when the funds will come in. These loans are paid back. We anticipate implementation starting around the September of 23 would be perfect scenario, with actual projects being bid around the first of the year of 2024. The grant would then end at the end of 2025. I'm going to introduce Jeff. Jeff's going to come up and talk to the rest about a little bit with the UCAP and kind of the same things you heard the last time, but he's just going to reemphasize what's going on.
Thank you. My name's Jeff Busing with UCAP. I've been there for going on 35 years. We've done quite a few of these projects in Tracy. And so we are going to be the field administrator for this Small Cities Grant. We have been the general and field administrators for many years, and we've done received one to three grants every year for the last few years, and we've dealt with disasters, lead, healthy homes projects, multi-county small cities projects, and owner-occupied rental and commercial type projects in our area. UCAP administers Minnesota Housing Finance. We take care of emergency loans and rehab loans with them in 9 counties. We also own and manage 18 Merle homes, which is a homeowner project that we sell our homes on a contract for deed to low-income people. We administer weatherization projects in 13 different counties. Our energy assistance program goes through 9 counties. We have 4 inspectors that are housing qualified certification, and we have 3 of them that work regularly in the small cities program. Our inspectors receive the training in lead and asbestos, energy efficiency, also furnace technicians and things like that. The city of Tracy, we've had extensive working with small cities projects. We've participated with Tracy in over the grants over 30 years here. With the city council, the EDA, and the city staff, we've been very active in promoting the small cities program. EDA has also been active in the ground and the front lines assisting with these projects. All our projects will be sent documentation to the State Historical Society. Very seldom do we ever have a homeowner's home that is historical. Your commercial buildings, we could have commercial buildings there that are historical value to the State Historical Society. So sometimes that'll take a little longer to get the okay from them. A lot of times we have to deal with the roof. That's not quite as extensive as like the front doors and the windows. That's where the Historical Society would ask that we do something similar to what is already there. Same way with tuck pointing and stuff, they have some regulations there. So sometimes we have to deal with that and maybe work out some funding to help get your buildings, commercial buildings, up to standard as the State Historical Society would like. I guess, is there any questions or you want to know about, or?
This will start in 23,
September of 24, I believe.
24.
It's only if we get the grant. I mean, we have to be, the second half of this, all of this is just for the second half of the grant.
If you're going to talk, we need
so,
to get.
So once the second half of the grant is taken care of, that'll push us through to, we got through the first one, now we got to have the second half of the application. And then we'll know more in September.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't start though till.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing going to start until January of 24. Yeah.
Grant is submitted May 1st. Is when we submit it to deed, or before that. We usually make sure it's up there before that.
But it really depends on how active they are or how on time they are. Remember, the last one we had was spread out and actually got stretched out another 4 or 5 months past.
Yeah.
There's one more thing I want to add for the public record, and we have to provide proof of this to UCAP as well as part of the application. But this was published in the newspaper Record twice, I believe, the last 2 weeks, and as a notice for this public hearing, and we'll provide those official notices as part of the application, as part of the process. But I want to make sure I get that on record that this was published as a public hearing in the local paper Record.
And it was twice, Eric. Yep.
Yep.
I had just a couple questions. So the target area is the entire city limits for qualifying for residential projects, but they still must be owner occupied, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then in the resolution for the commercial area, it references that there are 46 buildings in that target area, and that of those 46, 10 are structurally standard and 35 are substandard, 35 of the buildings. But all of the buildings in that target area are eligible for the program, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then I know you've referenced our City of Tracy's past experience with this program. The impression I've always had is that we've had a very low default rate on the loans. Is that correct?
Yes. In fact, I don't believe that we have any of them. That there's some active ones now, but we've been told through the city that we've done a very good job of even getting some of the ones that were inactive and were past due. We were able to collect on them.
Well, good.
In the event that there is a default, so to speak, and they've either moved out of the home but haven't finished paying or whatever, then is the house collateral?
Each one of them has a lien on it. Yes. Yep. So remember, it's at 10 years. But even if a loan isn't paid back, there's no satisfaction given for that even after 10 years if there's a lien on it yet. If they owe the city money, the lien will stay on it.
So that could affect the sale?
Yes. It will absolutely can affect the sale because it can't be sold because there is a lien out there on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
When those are, so, correct me if I'm wrong, when individuals have sold the house in that first 10 years, we get a check. We have several of them in the last, through the EDA or whatever. Is any of that paid back to deed or anybody else, or is that just if they pay off early, they come in?
It comes to the city. And then the city, normally, I think they put it in a fund, and it's loaned out to people that would be an owner-occupied house.
Yeah.
Say if they wanted to get that $5,000 loan to fix a roof, the city could offer that. They'd have it in the kitty.
Kind of a little snowball effect where we've been able to, that's the way that, and Jeff can probably attest to this a little bit more, but we've always had the money in that fund or account that we can actually put, money forward for this. I mean, I've been told there's been a lot of cities that haven't had the money to put up front where we've had the money to put up front because of those situations.
Yeah.
So that's a dedicated or allocated account? So that we couldn't use that money for other purposes?
Let me answer that question. So it's in a separate fund, and what that means is it's not a separate bank account because all of our funds are in one bank account. The fund is kind of an accounting structure, like we have the general fund, the water fund, etc. So there's a separate fund. It's called the CDBG fund, and you can see it on your financial reports. And that money is segregated financially from an accounting standpoint from all the rest of the funds of the city. So we have about roughly $120,000 in cash right now in that particular fund, and then there's some money that's still going to be coming back in the future as well. That's the money that we would use, for these potential loans and other things like that. Some of that, and we want to keep it separate because there's some limitations on what you can use some of the funds for, and so you don't want to commingle that with the rest of your funds of the city. And in general, and this has been true for about 20 years as well, particularly because of how much federal money we get, that's why we have these separate funds for all these different things anyway, is because under GASB rules, the Government Accounting Standards Board, we have to keep all of that separate. So the water fund separate from the liquor fund, separate from the general fund, et cetera. And so essentially what we're doing is we're just kind of following accounting procedures. But it doesn't, sometimes people think, well, that means there's a separate bank account. That's not true. It's just how it's segregated on our balance sheets is what it amounts to. So yes, that is a long way of answering the question. Yes, it is segregated.
So that we cannot use it for other purposes? That's
Well-
what I want the assurance of.
When you say cannot use it for other purposes, we can use it for purposes that it's allowed to be used for. That doesn't mean that we don't use it for things other than this specific purpose, but in terms of a match for these particular things. But it's not used for general government purposes, no.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming down.
I need a motion to close the,
No, you can just say that you have to ask if there's any public comment. I don't see anybody, but, for the record.
would anybody like to comment?
If not, then you can close the public hearing on your own. You don't need a
Close
motion.
the public hearing at this time. Now, the two resolutions.
You want them done separately?
Yeah, probably it'd be a good
Okay.
idea.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-31, approval of the grant application.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jerry? Call for the, any comments, questions?
I think it's a great program.
Oh, yeah.
Win-win.
What, Diane's just whispering in my ear, Mayor, about making sure that anyone who has any property in the commercial areas, that they would need to abstain, from the vote on this.
Good catch, thank you.
So when I say the name, just say abstain if you want to abstain.
Yep.
Okay. Very good.
We good?
Yes.
Okay. Teagues,
Aye.
Landay,
Aye.
Shones,
Aye.
Dobson,
Aye.
I'm sorry, Arviso,
Aye.
Schmidt.
Abstain.
Okay. Sorry, Tom, I should have done your list.
Then I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-33 for the findings of blight.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any comments, questions?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by finding the blights, I guess.
Remember Jeff Gladys explained that quite detail at the last meeting, how we have to use those terms.
So, and it seemed as
Yeah.
if the bar is set fairly low for blight. It sounded like as long as of those 40 or whatever, a couple of them even had.
Yeah, there's a percentage you have to have,
It was-
and this is one of these hoops basically you have to jump through in order to qualify for the grant. You have to make it's really just a hoop.
And then they have a list of items, and some of it is just like needing paint.
Yeah, and we're not condemning anybody's buildings.
No.
It's just, that's just the term that they have to use.
We didn't have to point out which ones, right?
No.
I mean, we're just clarifying
No,
out.
we're not pointing out any particular structures or anything like that. And it could be something as simple as, these are old buildings, there's probably a lot of knob and tube wiring, for example, in there, and that would be considered substandard. But you see that kind of stuff all the time. So we're not talking about buildings that are ramshackle and falling down necessarily, but they just don't meet current standards.
Any other questions? Call for the vote, and anyone that needs to abstain, say so.
Arviso,
You said okay. Yes.
Shones,
Aye.
Landay,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Abstain.
Dobson.
Yes. All right, is there anybody from the public that would like to comment? All right, I would entertain a motion for our consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the March 27 council minutes, approve municipal accounts payable without breakthrough beverage, and approve the plumber's license for Tri-Town Plumbing and Heating, as long as all fees are paid.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any questions, discussion?
Is Tri-Town Plumbing new to town? I don't know.
No, let me see where they're
I
from here.
don't
real
think
quick.
so. I think they've been here, they've had licenses before, if I remember.
What do you think,
It's
Chief?
from Westbrook.
Okay. That was the question I was going to ask.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Call for the vote.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Landay,
Aye.
Tiggs,
Aye.
Arvisu,
Yes.
Pro Tem Mayor Dobson.
Yes. Right, and
I'll
do we
make
need
a-
another one?
I'll make a motion to approve municipal accounts payable for Breakthrough Beverage.
I'll second that.
Seconded. Call for vote.
Landay,
Aye.
Arvisu,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Yes.
and Pro Tem Mayor Dobson.
Yes.
Mayor Council communication. Do you want to bring up what is?
Well, this is for your discussion. I don't know exactly what you want. So this is for you all to talk about that.
All right, so we introduced this last week, or 2 weeks ago, and Eric and I attended a meeting at Tracy Public Schools with Chad and a number of individuals. Well, actually, Chad came in later, but this was with the community
Ed board.
It's the Community Ed Advisory Board, yes, that's correct.
the JO volleyball group who approached us, was it last year, to use our facility for free. I don't believe ever used it, did they? Did they ever rent our facility or anything?
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it may have been 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago, but I think that at previous times they had used it. And yes, that's correct, but the city council at that time felt that everybody needed to contribute, and so there was a discussion about how to do that, and some of our fee schedule was changed that particular time. Yeah, that's what happened.
So this group then approached the Tracy Education group to become a part, similar to some other groups that are a part of that, Little League and a number of other community groups, to then be able to use the facility underneath the auspices of that group who already has a contract. And then I'll let Eric mention that in that meeting 2 weeks ago, he had mentioned that we may not be able to do anything because of our prior agreement. I think you found that our prior agreement was more specific than what we had thought.
Yeah, ultimately I thought originally we might be able to just kind of keep operating under that agreement, but in looking at it again, the way that it's enumerated specifics in the exhibits is that it lists the specific activities that are allowed. It's not a blanket thing for all community ed programs. And so when we had amended it before, we amended it just to adult community ed programs, not all community ed programs. This would not be adult. And then it has some other things listed in there. It has some wrestling in there and some basketball in there. But it doesn't have any other sports listed, and that's it. So it's very specific to the things that are allowed other than school activities, because these other items are not school-related activities in that agreement. So ultimately, if it's something that you wanted to do and you wanted to, have a conversation about how far you wanted to go with the agreement, it would require some language changes probably in order to make that work.
Well, I think in the larger discussion that came up as a result of this was how far do we stretch with community use of the VMC and kind of what has been done in the past of, if the chamber uses this is how much it's going to be, if this group uses it, if you want to rent it, this, and we've been pretty much holding that bar without making exceptions. And that has come up a little bit from place to place of just saying, okay, is that first of all, is it necessary? We want to continue that. Secondly, is it enough? Because a thing that has come up both last week's or 2 weeks ago in our council meeting as it related to the VMC was the issue of janitoring, and this is another event that may or may not have sufficient staff to restore everything or get things ready. I think that's the discussion, is how far are we going to go with anything underneath the umbrella of that group is grandfathered in, or do we change any of our fee schedule?
So,
Go ahead.
excuse me, so Tom, just to be clear, Junior Olympic Volleyball Organization, which is a separate entity from school sports, correct, has requested to be considered, have its program run through community education, Tracy Community Education. And Tracy Community Education activities are allowed use of the VMC under the current contract. Is that correct?
It's slightly, some correct and some I would modify a little bit. I would say, first of all, you're correct, they made a request to community ed to be a part of it. Community ed said yes, so they are part of the community ed program now. And actually they're holding practices at the high school currently. I can see it on the community ed calendar that I get from Bill Tower. They are currently not all community ed activities are allowed in the VMC. There are only specific activities that are currently allowed in the VMC that are community ed, adult community ed, which is why we end up with the pickleball and volleyball and stuff.
Right.
And school-related activities, and then it specifically talks about youth wrestling and like 5th and 6th grade basketball, and that's it. So like, for example, Greg Carlson came in recently and asked, well, can we have practice in there? And I said, actually Diane and I were both here happened to be downstairs when they came in, and I said, not currently, because you don't operate under community ed, and and you're not in that contract anyway, so we would have to charge you to do that. So we talked to him about making that happen. So that's an example of a baseball program, and there would be other examples as well, not just that, where it's not covered. So I think the question that Tom is asking about how far do you go with it is a good question.
Well, my understanding is that we were going to consult with Jeremy or maybe others as to how we're situated with his being able to accommodate. How much more can he take?
That's a good question, and I did talk to Jeremy. Both Tyler, who's his direct supervisor, and I had a long conversation with Jeremy last week, ahead of the council meeting, because I figured somebody would ask that question. There's several things that he would say. I asked him specifically, okay, I know people would say, well, we clean up after all of our events. And I don't doubt that, incidentally. No one's disputing that at all. I said, okay, well, what does that mean for you? And he says, what would you say if someone said, well, we clean up so you don't have to? He says, well, that's true, they do clean up, but that doesn't mean that it's ready for the next event. So even though, yes, the trash might be put away or something like that, there are still other things and tasks that have to be done, in between all these events. And I asked Jeremy specifically, I said, okay, of all of your time during the year, what percentage of your time do you spend just servicing events at the VMC? Now, some of that would be, events through the school, but then you've got bone builders and the YMCA programs and, walkers and stuff like that. And he would say that for all of these events, that he spends about 50% of his time on this one thing. The challenge for Jeremy, and what Jeremy would say to me, and I've had some conversations with Shane similarly as well, because, it affects a lot of other, operations as well, as, okay, well, what does that mean, in terms of your time? So to give you a sense of what that position has done in the past and is still doing in some cases, is that when we originally designed the position, it was custodial and maintenance, so that includes, not heavy lifting, but, when you're talking about fixing a leaky faucet or changing light bulbs, it's more than just cleaning. Includes not just this building, but also the library, also work at the liquor store. In the past, the airport, although Shane has told me that he has not been able to get to the airport because of the extra events that we've been having this year. We at one point asked him to help out with cleaning up in the break room and stuff like that at the shop, but that's also something that has gone away because of the extra work that he's had to do here. Jeremy also is, whenever there's a maintenance call at Orchard Lane, goes out there if it's, could be a smoke detector battery or look at my appliance or whatever. He does mowing at Orchard Lane as well as, all the way around these buildings and in the past EDA lots as well. In addition to that, because we're down a person in Public Works, Jeremy is also our backup snow person when there's really bad snows because he's CDL certified, and so he does a lot of that and ends up doing a lot of the snow removal around downtown too because of that. And then oftentimes in these events, he becomes kind of the person on call. And so if you have a situation where you have a toilet that gets backed up or something like that, he gets a call. And this is exacerbated, and this is just a fact. I don't mean this was a bad choice. I think it was a good choice, but you might remember we had another half-time custodial position a year ago that we let go last year, which means that Jeremy is doing this all by himself, and it used to be Jeremy plus another half. And so there's a significant amount of work that Jeremy does, and so there are, and the school's been really, really good to work with. I think that what Bill Tower would say is that, well, look, if there's something we need to do, maybe, let us know what it is. And I think Tom suggested, I think to me privately, and I think it's a good suggestion, well, maybe we need to just have a checklist of things that need to get done after there's an event or to set up for an event, or maybe we need to ask people to do more. And the school's been really good because I know they're looking at occupying some more space this coming year, and I think that they, have basically in principle agreed to add some additional, custodial work. But candidly, it's a lot of work for one person. Could he, and Jeremy, to his credit, says to me, I said, Jesus said, that's a lot. He says, yeah, but, I probably could get more efficient. Well, I'm not going to disagree. You probably could get more efficient. Everybody can get better. But it's a lot. It's a lot for one person. Particularly when we have a situation where, we have an emergency and, we had, before the Prairie Women's Expo, we had a little ice that night before. And the chamber was really great about getting out there and taking care of it. But, Jeremy wasn't available because he was on vacation on Thursday and Friday, and he was in Sioux Falls. And, I didn't even really think about it. I suppose we could have created a backup through one of Shane's guys or called the on-call guy to help out with that or something. But fortunately, Shane knows the chamber people pretty well. But, these are the things that, we don't think about. Again, this is the difficult part of having a small operation. This is all for you to understand the kind of flavor of what, is going on. And so when we think about adding stuff to the EMC, which we have done, and I support because we got to use this building, we also need to think about how do we take care of it so that people are satisfied with the experience, because if they're not, then we're only shooting ourselves in the foot. So it's not something we have to solve right now, but it's worth a discussion during the budget.
Well, I think we need to look at what resources are needed. And then we have to work with, if these programs are going to be run through the community ed, we need to work with the community ed as to, okay, what portion's going to be the city's responsibility, what portion's going to be community ed's responsibility, because it is their programs.
Right.
And those discussions have to happen. Some of the other input that we've had, like for the wrestling program, for what they do when they set up and tear down and everything. I'm not saying there's still not some duties that Jeremy has to do, but it greatly decreases.
Yeah, it's helpful.
When they have everything swept and everything.
Sure.
Maybe he has to mop the floor, but, he doesn't have to be sweeping and picking stuff up before he mops it.
Right.
Some of those duties are just general, when you're the maintenance person, that you're going to be expected to do. Now, we also have to remember these community ed programs are primarily in the winter. not in the summer. And so in the summer, he doesn't have as much going on in the gym, which then would allow him to do like some of the mowing and all. I think we can't just throw everything into one bucket because it's seasonal.
Yep.
And so I think we have to have a lot more discussion with the community ed as to what they're willing to help pick up. Because I think they are willing.
I think they are too, and I would love that. The agreement isn't too specific. It kind of says, well, too much trash. And it talks about trash. And, I mean, we don't want a lot of trash around the gym. And people, they have a tendency to spill popcorn or whatever at these events. I mean, it just happens.
You said Tom had the suggestion or whatever, that there's a checklist.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, yeah.
So if you're going to use the space as community ed, be it for, a wrestling, a volleyball, whatever, I mean, those are the two main things I'm thinking of, that there's a checklist that these are your responsibilities. We could easily use the checklist of what the wrestling program already does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you talk to Jeremy after each of these events for a little while too, just to kind of take the temperature and say, okay, was there anything that you wound up doing on Monday that could have been done by a big staff of people that afternoon, and we could add that to that list, or just
Sure.
make it cognizant. But if there's things that many more individuals could do, you got 10 or 12 people standing around, at the end, all willing to help. A couple of these things that would take him a half a day can be done in a minute.
Right. So here's my question for you, and this is really kind of the key question, which is why I consider just putting something on the agenda, for action, but I don't even know exactly what you want. And when we have this request from JO Volleyball, I guess the first question is that are you predisposed to say, yeah, we'd allow it? And if so, under what conditions? What does that look like?
What is our agreement with community ed? I mean, is it free right now for anything they want to do?
Yes.
Adult program.
It's free.
It's like mostly adult program.
Okay.
Yeah, it's free for school-related activities, and then there's some specific things listed. So adult community ed, and then you've got a couple of little kids basketball, and then wrestling, and that's it. That's currently allowed in it.
And this school functions, I mean, does that not fall underneath the school's contract with us?
It's all part of the same contract. This is all the same contract. It's just that the community ed piece is kind of tacked onto the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's in the bigger scope of the school using it more and more and more. It just gets, all these things are starting now to kind of come to a head to say, okay, maybe we need to review where we're at.
Well, let's stop and think a minute. First off, I want to thank you, Tom, for going to that meeting for me, because I was tied up.
No.
So I apologize for that. But the practice isn't going to mess up the gym too much, in my opinion. What's going to mess up the gym would be the tournaments, if they have one or two or three or whatever it is. So if we have that checklist, like Jerry says, but let's look at the impact for the city of what these people come to town, maybe more for Subway, more for the old bank building, more for the coffee shop. Let's try to incorporate that too, because they're taxpayers too. So if we can help them out by having a little better business that day, we need to think about that.
Absolutely.
Well, and then in the big picture, since they're not really a for-profit company, that we're dealing with, it's the same fund. Whether it's city funds that we're using or these groups that raise, fundraising, or individuals who are paying a fee, moms and dads who are paying a fee for these summer events. It's all coming from the same pockets, the same community, really. I mean,
Yeah.
So if we charge more, they're going to charge these same people.
But a lot of those people don't necessarily have to live in town, Tom, and pay taxes.
Right.
That's what we have to balance. And I'm saying we need to use this building and everything, but people that choose to do JO volleyball, they're not Tracy residents.
Not necessarily.
No, they can live wherever, because there's the tryouts, you pay your fees and everything. It is not a school function, whatever. That's why it's being attempted to be brought through the community ed to kind of go around this contract and everything.
That was made clear.
Now, that being said, I think we want to work with JO volleyball and stuff like that to have them be able to have tournaments here. But I think we have to have it spelled out very clearly as to then, okay, if you're going to run this through community ed, because that's how you want to go around it, that's fine. But now community ed has to step up to the plate also and meet these responsibilities as far as what needs to be done for cleanup, setup, whatever.
So what do we charge for, say, a wrestling tournament?
So if it was an all-day for the whole gym, that would be 400, right? Yeah, for 400 a day for all day for the whole gym.
And that's what we do for any other...
Any other event that would require a
tournament.
full day, yes, yeah.
Could we, I'm just throwing this out, could we, within that contract, just say that regular practices are certainly underneath that umbrella, but when we get to tournaments, all-day tournaments, regardless of whether they're underneath that organization or any other, that there is a fee to cover the extra janitorial.
But that's
But
not what happens with the wrestling, is it? They aren't charged a fee.
That's correct. It's not, they're not currently being charged because they're already under this umbrella. So, I mean, that's certainly one way to do it for sure, where you could distinguish between tournaments and regular practices, and then have a separate cleaning fee. The other thing that I was going to throw out as an option for you to consider is maybe not a fee per se, but actually maybe someone from the school comes over for an hour or something like that to help, that kind of thing. So it's more like in-kind services necessarily than a fee.
Would that meet the checklist though? So that person has this checklist to go down to make sure?
Yeah, we could create it. I mean, the thing that's the disadvantage right now about the way it's written is that it's not too specific. It would be nice if we had a checklist that listed these are the things that you're responsible for, these are the things that we're responsible for, and that would be, that would require an amendment, to that section of it, because there's a whole section in the contract about cleaning. And
So I asked whether or not, when the wrestling tournament is going on, are they getting charged a fee or not?
No.
Okay.
Because they're already part of this.
Right, okay, so
Yes.
that's, and I'm not suggesting that we do, but I am suggesting that it would be tough then to implement for another organization underneath the same
Umbrella.
entity
Well-
being charged for a tournament.
You'd have to essentially make everybody the same, and so it would essentially mean wrestling would now be charged a fee in addition to jail volleyball or whatever, if you want to make it fair for everybody.
Here's my concern. You talk about what if we charged for these all-day events to offset increased custodial, but we're not increasing positions.
That's correct.
So, why, what difference does it make if we charge more money or not if we're not hiring anybody? You understand where I'm coming
Right.
from here?
Yep.
Well, and then I'll play devil's advocate too. How many other groups are going to go to community ed and say, we want to be part of community ed now?
I don't know how
We're
many
opening
other-
a can of worms that we can never close.
Well, what other potential groups are there?
Who knows?
Well,
Pick-
I mean,
Pick anything in town that needs a space for anything. Does the baseball team that's used the practicing before, are they going to want to go underneath it? The engineers? Not, or is the little kids baseball, if they can't get out to play out at the park one day, are they going to want to come and use? It's like we're opening a can of worms that's crazy. Because every group in the workplace, it's like if they've ever had to pay to use the place, let's use it.
I agree.
So I don't care how much money we want to throw at it and charge or whatever. It's part of, if you're part of a group that needs a spot, why would you not go, I want to be under community ed and then I can use the gym for free?
if it's available, because if we keep booking more and more people, there's only so many days, and then you'd have to start setting priorities on who has the first dibs on the facility.
Are there some things that we could get Jeremy to make his job easier and more efficient? I mean,
In terms of equipment and things like that?
Do we have a floor scrubber? Do we have?
That's a good question. I have asked him that question in the past. We have gotten some, yes, and I think that I will ask him that question and get a more specific answer to you.
I think in one discussion we had with the school and thinking about the summer programs here and using the facility, I think Chad had even mentioned that they had some kind of a piece of equipment that if they were going to be doing some work here, could be used here because there's going to be no necessity over in the...
Right.
There might be some of those things maybe we can figure out if it helps him.
Yep.
If it's here.
Yep.
We can plan for it.
I'll ask him that question. That's a good thought. Yep.
Or that could be their in-kind part.
It could be. Maybe that could be their in-kind
They would
part.
bring that equipment and do the
Yep.
flooring after one of their events.
During
I
my,
think they need to put a little skin into this game. Otherwise, it's too easy for them to just, yep, we'll put it under community ed, we'll put it under community ed. They need to have a little skin in this game, and I think they're willing to.
I think so.
I think they are. We just need to have that conversation, sit down, try to get this hammered out. I mean, we're beating a dead horse here.
Well, here would be my suggestion then, just because, I mean, there's a lot of different views and we're not sure exactly what we're talking about yet. What if, when we have a conversation with Jeremy, we can craft up some ideas of a checklist of things that need to be done that would help him out, or maybe some pieces of equipment that we could help him out. We can bring back something specific, to you, rather than, because I wasn't even sure what you wanted to do. Because what I'm hearing you say, in general, although there's some different opinions about this, is that, yeah, we would probably be okay with that as long as it were limited and it didn't open up a can of worms with a bunch of other organizations and it didn't overburden us from a cleaning standpoint. That's what I hear you saying. So if we could craft something that addresses all those issues, an amendment to the agreement, would that be something you'd be interested in seeing maybe in a couple weeks or a month or something?
I guess, yes.
I think you and staff and community ed reps are better positioned to work out the details than we as a council sitting here.
Okay. If everybody's okay with that direction, generally we can proceed that way, and it's helpful because I wasn't sure where everybody was at. And sometimes it's good to have these conversations, I will say that I don't know how super urgent it is. I know JO volleyball's been practicing at the high school, but they can't even get any tournaments this year anyways because it's too late. So I think this is more of a thing that would happen next year anyway. So we've got some time to figure it out.
And it sounded like there would be no tournament until 2024.
Right. I think so.
Jails is about done.
Yeah, they're done in May. Yeah.
Eric, as a point of reference, we have 4 years left on the current 10-year contract?
2028, I think, is the last year.
Okay, so 5 more years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
so as long as we're on talking about the gym, according to Carl, there was another backing up of the sewer system during some event here. And
Happens pretty regularly.
okay, so what's the problem? I mean, why is it backing up?
The pipes are 90 years old.
So a fix of that would be either totally replace them, and we're talking in cement, and or can you do liners or rooter?
I don't know yet is the short answer to the question. What I've talked to Jeremy about doing is putting a camera down to see what's going on specifically. But the short answer is that we think that the pipes were iron pipes, and they corrode, and then of course the inside of them starts to fill in and with minerals and things like that. So in reality, plus in addition to that, when this building was built, a 3-inch drain was standard. Today's a 4-inch, so they're not even as big as they used to be. So in reality, the building is 90 years old. And that's really what the main issue is. And we probably can't fix that problem perfectly unless we literally rip it all out and redo it.
Can we because that was something I wanted to discuss tonight anyway too, and kind of the open part of it is that our feasibility study or whatever, the condition assessment of the building, we're not thinking about doing until we have a grant for it.
That's correct. So there's a grant through the Minnesota Historical Society that is due this summer. We'll find out about that in late September, October. And assuming that we get that grant, then we'll do it after the fact. We got bids back on that. It's going to be about $19,000 to do that. So it's not something that we want to spend. Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about something that's inexpensive here is what I'm getting at, which is why we want to try to get the grant. So we probably won't know the details of that until later in the year.
So just recognizing that we have tournaments coming up next winter again, and I think actually a fairly good sized one is the final. There's some Final Four or something coming, or I mean, I don't think we can wait for that assessment then decide how much plumbing we need to do, and then wait until 2025 to get to it.
There you go.
I mean, ultimately,
we get somebody to look at it professionally.
Yeah, ultimately, Shane and I had a conversation about it this afternoon, and our plan is, and I had talked to Jeremy about it a few weeks ago. Our plan is to put a camera down those pipes to see what we can see first of all, to try to diagnose some of the issues. Is it corroded pipes? Is there something blocking it? Is it tree roots? What is it? We don't know exactly what's causing the issue. We do know, however, I'm going to be honest with you. This is the last time we had this conversation, that people are putting things down there that are not supposed to be going down there. And that's part of the issue. So it's not just all us.
So how do we monitor bathrooms?
We don't. That would be a violation of the privacy.
I know you can't go in a stall with somebody, but can you have someone specifically assigned to a bathroom where after they leave the stall, things can be checked out?
I don't know.
That's not the issue. I'm going to be more specific.
Okay.
Feminine products are put down in the male restroom. And that's probably, and there's no disposal for that in the male restroom for obvious reasons. And so it's one of those things where, the women's restroom backs up a lot more than the men's restroom was, and somebody needed to use it. I understand. I really do. But that's essentially what happened. So I'm sorry to be so crass about it, but let's just be honest here.
So which bathrooms are backing up mostly? All of them?
I think it's
all the common?
It's all of them, honestly. This one in here backs up, honestly, every week at one time or another. It's the whole building, I mean,
So
we just don't have
all
it.
going out one spot out to the street?
It's a good question. Shane, do you have anything to add to this discussion?
Come on, Shane. Hit the rotor-rooter out. Let's go.
We don't have a rotor-rooter. So the building was built in two different times. The armory was built in the 50s. This part of the building was built in 38. So this part of the building has its own sewer, its own water connection, its own water meter. The other side of the building also has its own sewer and water. So they're two separate, they actually have their own electrical services. The only thing connecting the two is a generator. It's the only thing that connects the electrical at any given time. So, basically they're two buildings, they're just connected. So,
What is on, so like this bathroom out here, is that on the old section or?
this one here would be on the old section, right out in the hallway.
Okay.
Everything on the VMC side, what they use for the events, those are all on the, it's all part of the armory system.
All right.
So
And
one
then,
bathroom is all that's hooked onto these pipes?
Well,
And we're backing up
Downs-
every night,
the
every
locker,
week?
the
Downstairs.
You got the locker room.
Well, a couple things. We're talking about new and old here. There's a difference in 14 years. So, it's all old. But so yes, this bathroom here, plus any of the locker rooms that are downstairs in the basement, and there used to be bathrooms. There are still bathrooms upstairs. They're just not currently being used, and a full kitchen too. So all that stuff is linked to the same sewer. Plus, there's a small bathroom in the back of for employee use in the back of the admin office too. So all of that is on one pipe, and then the locker rooms on the other side of the gym, plus anything that's upstairs is not currently being used, and then the 2 bathrooms that are downstairs is on a different system. But I think that it's still all the same size pipe though, right? Because they would have been built in that same era.
I think it's all 6-inch, but
Yep.
everything in the building is cast iron.
Yep.
And there's a lot of houses I've seen in the 60s and 70s that are built, residences that have them completely corroded out and
Yeah.
disintegrated. Everything here is original yet, as far as I know.
Well, I
so.
think that would be, I guess, something that I would request, see what the rest of the council feels, is to have a professional come in and give us an idea.
It's something we're already doing.
Because you're gonna have to rent a camera from someplace.
Right. This is something we're already doing. We don't need direction for that because it's already on our agenda.
Do you have an idea when you're gonna have it back to us?
It's a good question.
Ask Jeremy how far he's investigated that. But
That's right.
My other question to that is, do we need to attack both bathrooms right away? Can we attack one, get it working good, and then worry about the second one?
I would say go after the BMC side because that's what's used during events.
Yeah.
You don't want those down during events because then it just bombards this
But you
one.
just can't do the pipes that are coming from the restroom, I mean, because you're gonna have to do the whole line out to,
Thankfully, that is basically the point of exit of the building, that area. The sewer line's actually right outside the door where you walk in, the main door to the BMC side. The sewer's just about 10 feet west of there, and that is new up to the tree. When they did the 4th and Morgan project, they replaced it. So there's a new PVC coming into the yard, but everything from there into the building is older, so... but everything's concrete, so, it's jackhammering, it's not gonna be fun
well,
or
I guess
cheap.
right now, if you're already planning on doing the cameras and stuff like that, I guess the main thing is like, are we looking at a couple weeks turnaround, a couple months turnaround, kind of a timeline?
I'll get an answer to you by tomorrow and send you an email. I don't feel comfortable without knowing for sure.
Yeah.
So if that's all right with you,
Yeah,
we'll get you an
it'd be
answer.
nice to know what it is.
And then we can
it
inform the
be-
public too when, at some point.
Can it be duct taped together for a couple of years?
It could be 10 feet of pipe completely collapsed, it could be a 1 foot area right outside the building that could be plugged up too.
Where
So, I
the
mean,
tree is.
yep.
Find out then. Perfect.
I see multiple lines plugged by tree roots.
Well, Tracy is phenomenal with boulevard trees
Could
and
be that tree, yeah.
replacing. After reports. Anybody have a?
Just a couple things. One is that I wanted to give a quick update on the DNR grant that we applied for. We did get the application out. It is slightly different than what we had originally presented to you because the DNR made some changes. In that they don't allow anything now outside of the park boundaries, which is anything inside the right-of-way. So we'd originally wanted to put in a handicap parking stall, which would have been in the right-of-way for the road, which is not being eligible expense for the grant. So we had to take that out. Good news is that's about $25,000 less, but I just wanted you to be aware of that quick change. The other thing, just to let you know, and I want to give you a heads up, and we're gonna talk about the budget schedule here in a little bit at the end of the meeting. But one of the things that I think that everybody has really thought about a lot, and we've talked about for a couple of years now, is this idea that our debt payments are highest right now in 23, 24, and 25, and then they start to go down, in the ensuing years. One of the things that we haven't done that I plan on presenting to you at the first opportunity at these budget meetings is, okay, well, what does this look like over the next 10 years? Because we really need to start thinking about what do we do, because there's a whole bunch of streets and water and sewer in this town, particularly over on 1st Street East and 2nd Street East, that, as well as some things like Roland and things like that are originally part of the plan that did not get done, that are going to need to get done into the future. Well, how do you pay for that, right? And how does that compete against all of the other things that you want to do, like, build a community center or fix up the VMC and stuff like that, So over the next 10 years, we know that our debt payments are going to go down, and so you probably want to spend it on something. What is that, and how is that going to work, and when is that going to happen? So I want to give you a little bit of a heads up to start thinking about, okay, what about the next 10 years, and what that might look like and what our priorities are.
So Eric, what you're proposing is that instead of having the levy go down, we keep it at that level and then incorporate other work.
I'm not proposing anything at this point. I'm just talking about a process. There will be some choices for you. I mean, I can model it out to say, okay, well, what if you increase the tax levy 3% a year for the next 10 years? Well, how much money do we think that's going to generate? What could we do with that? What if it was 10% a year?
Oh my God, don't even say that.
Okay, what if it was 2% a year? 7% a year? What if it was 5% for 2 years and 3% for, there's different scenarios that you can create with this. So think of it as that. I'm going to be honest with you in that we've increased the tax levy 7% the last 2 years. Historically, it was like 3%. And a lot of that was based on what people thought they could tolerate. And when you build your budget that way, the one thing that doesn't get done is maintenance and capital projects. And that's why this building is the way that it is. It's why the streets are the way that they are. It's why we're having to borrow so much money now in order to fix it. Because and I'm not suggesting that we raise taxes a whole bunch. I don't want you to mistake me. I'm just saying there's a direct correlation between those things. Because if you want high services that the city of Tracy has typically offered in its history, and you don't want to raise your taxes very much, the consequence is maintenance and capital. That's an okay choice for you to make as a city council. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think you should make that choice with your eyes wide open. And so we've only kind of started, we only really looked at kind of like maybe 5 years ahead. Because this street project is much longer than that, I think we need to start looking longer. And so think about the next 10 years and what that might be. And then that's when we'll start having a discussion along with the community center and all this other stuff that we want to talk about in the first part of June. So that's kind of a big thing that I'm working on right now to try to figure out, to give you some choices. That's all I have, unless you have any questions on my report.
No, but I did have a question. Where did we end up with that volleyball request, just laying there idle?
The jail volleyball?
Yeah.
I think the short answer is, what I hear you saying is that you want us to work with the school to try to figure out how we can address the janitorial piece and then bring back some amendments to the agreement so that to allow it with some additional cleaning. That's what I hear you saying.
So we'll table this.
It'll come back.
Yeah,
It'll come back.
They have been approved underneath the education group. So that is, community education is already in there, actually being approved them joining.
We'll have to.
But they're not going to be using it.
But that doesn't really affect us right now though, Tom, because it's not under the contract for community ed.
As I said, but there's not a rush that we have to do something tonight.
No, we don't. Right. We have time to figure it out. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. No decision's been made yet as far as what it looks like, but it sounds like the answer is probably going to be yes, under certain conditions, but depending on what you decide and the school agrees to.
Any other questions for Eric?
Okay.
New business.
We have two items. The first one is the chief has been waiting patiently here for the last hour, and he has a resolution on a joint powers agreement with the city of Walnut Grove. So, Jason, if you'd like to talk about that.
This initially came up because the city of Walnut Grove was looking to hire a new police chief over there that does not have a lot of experience as an officer, and they needed, or they were looking for someone to help them get registered as a CLEO, a chief law enforcement officer, and then also help do field training for him in the area. And that's how this all got started. Since then, it's changed a little bit. We still believe that the agreement should be found and enacted, because we are running over there to help them with emergency services calls in the meantime. If it comes up to where we're over there for an extended period of time, because not all calls can be resolved in 10 or 15 minutes, and if it takes the county an hour to get there, or they're tied up with something else and we're there for an extended period of time, this allows us to bill the city of Walnut Grove for services that we're providing them. Currently, I think that they've changed their minds in contracting with us to provide training for their new hire, and I believe they're going to use the sheriff's office training officers so that they're more familiar with the Redwood County systems. So they've worked on an agreement with the sheriff, but this agreement, in the event that he, the new officer that they hire either does or doesn't take the position, or they do or don't hire him because it's not final yet, this just is kind of a agreement that I have similar with the county, where it just helps protect liabilities. And the city of Walnut Grove has already accepted this, and so we're presenting it to you.
So what's your opinion then? Should we do this or shouldn't we?
I believe that this is a solid agreement, yeah.
Okay.
You said, I think in the notes it was that this has been worked out with our city attorney.
Yes, he actually wrote the agreement for us after reviewing
So
the one that we have with the county. He kind of modeled it after that one.
Eric, is there anything you can?
No, I mean, this is a fairly straightforward situation, and the city attorney reviewed it. I reviewed it. Jason reviewed it. They've already accepted it, so.
And you'll bring forward if all of a sudden it's taking too much time of your officers going over there?
Yes.
Because you never know.
Well, you
Crime
have,
sprees.
the agreement allows you to say no.
Yeah, it does. And our priorities are here. So.
It's just, an agreement can say, you can say no, but when it's your job and you know there's somebody in danger or something in need, I know you and your officers will go over there. So I just want to make sure
And we
that
have been
you
for
know
years.
we would expect you, if all of a sudden it was getting to be above and beyond what you thought you were signing up for, that you would bring that forward.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion to accept this resolution.
I'll make that.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to approve resolution 2023-33, City of Tracy and City of Walnut Grove JT Joint Powers Agreement. Call for a vote.
Jones.
Aye.
Landeck.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Dobson.
Yes.
Teagues.
Aye.
Arvisu.
Yes.
Sorry, I dare you now too.
Long day.
As long as you ask him, that's all he cares about.
So, second resolution.
The second resolution is about the 2024 budget schedule, and it kind of outlines, what meetings we'd have. And there's a few dates that I want to call your attention to and make sure that you're okay with it. We can change it if you wish, in this document. The first one is June 5th. So this is the first Monday in June. This would be a study session. It would be similar to the study session that we had last year, in the library basement that most of you were at. It's where we would kind of present, where we are with the budget currently, where we think our resources are going to be. In this case, like I said earlier, kind of in the next 10 years. It's where we would discuss things like really big projects like the next phase of the street project, the community center, maintenance on this building, stuff like that. That are related to your priorities. Nothing would be necessarily decided in this meeting. This is kind of an opportunity to kind of receive information, digest it, talk about it, discuss it, help set some priorities for the staff. So does that first Monday in June work for people?
Planning Commission is possibly a conflict for me.
That's a good point, yeah. We could probably stay off of that. At this point, we probably don't, well, there's probably a good chance we won't have anything in the Planning Commission, to be honest with you, at this time. But we could probably make sure that if we have any business with the Planning Commission, that we'll get it done before we have this meeting.
What time would these meetings be?
You know, we could have them at just about any time that you would want. You know, normally we start these at 6 or so, but if you want to start earlier or later, we can do that too.
Definitely not earlier. For me.
I'm going to say definitely not later, because I don't want to be walking out.
That's why we start them at 6. It's because of the two of you.
Yeah, I know. You like some later, I like them. Well,
we split the baby right down the middle on that one every time.
6 o'clock.
So that's kind of where we were at mentally at 6 o'clock. So if we had anything with the Planning Commission, we'd probably try to move that to 5:30 and get it done quickly. But I don't anticipate that we will have anything. We don't have any current applications for any variances or anything like that.
We've done that in the past where
we have.
Commission.
We have.
And we just walk across.
Yeah. So if that works, we'll leave that there. The next one is that in August, you might remember last year we had the discussion about the capital projects. So we kind of prioritize what things are important to us for the 5-year capital improvement plan. That would be the 21st of August. That's a Monday, the third Monday in August. Might be a ways out at this point, but
it's good for now.
It's good for now. Any of these can be changed, obviously, but we want to try to get them on the calendar for people so that they know, you know.
So the 14th, that's you present budget estimates? Right.
So this the charter. That's the first meeting of the month. Oddly, the 14th is the second Monday of the month. The charter requires that we present to the city council budget estimates at the first meeting in August. And so that's what we do, is we kind of say this is how much we think we're going to have for revenue. It's really high level. How much do we think we have for revenue? This is generally what we think our expenses might be. But that will be kind of a 20-minute, kind of presentation without too much heavy lifting at that point. But that's why we have that on there, is because the charter requires us to talk about it at that meeting.
Diane, you have something?
No, July 14th is a Friday.
August 14th.
August 14th.
Did I say July?
No.
It's on here as August, so if I said July, I was wrong.
Maybe I
It's
said
August.
July.
August.
August 14th.
August. August 14th.
What are
All
we
right,
doing
I'll
on
take
August
that one.
14th now?
August 14th is our first council meeting in August, and we'll be presenting budget estimates.
Okay, thank you.
And then the 21st, when did we do where the department heads, the August or September 8th, where the department heads brought their requests of
That was in
what
July.
priority, and then we prioritized that?
That'll be on the 21st, August 21st.
All right, I think I was a part of that one, so.
You were part of that one. It was right after you were sworn in, yes. And then the last one is, and this is one as if necessary. We've used it in the past, and we haven't in the past sometimes. And that is that a meeting before the 25th. Last year we got behind the 8 ball because our finance director resigned, and I kind of had to pick up the pieces at the last minute, and it put us behind the 8 ball. I prefer to have the budget about 98% done in time for the preliminary budget in September, which we have to adopt. So that's why I like to have a meeting on the 18th, the week before, if there's anything that we need to hash out, before that preliminary budget. That doesn't mean it can't change before December, but so that would be a meeting if necessary, depending on kind of where we're at. We didn't have it last year because we weren't prepared, because of that circumstances that happened, but we have the 2 previous years that I've been here. So kind of 3 separate budget meetings that would be study sessions and this is really a good opportunity to kind of have these big discussions about, well, where are we going to find money for a community center, and how are we going to pay for that, or how are we going to pay to fix
Excuse
our
me.
streets or whatever.
I thought the community center group was fundraising.
Yes, and I think the question is going to be if they do or do not reach that $850,000, what do we do? We don't know the answer to that question yet, but it was requested of me to and the city council to have a discussion about that in June, and I said we can have a discussion as part of the budget because it's really a budgetary discussion, and so it'll be part of that June 5th meeting. Yes.
And that June 5th meeting is open to the public?
They're all open. I do want to be, this is important. That meeting is not just about the community center. It's about the budget. So the community center is obviously going to be part of that. It is also a meeting of the city council. It is not a meeting of the community center work group or a meeting of citizens. Certainly it's an open meeting and people can come and watch and listen and, all of those kinds of things. But, it's important we have a discussion about, everything that's on the table. Because when you start thinking about what you might want to spend the money on or how much money you want to have to spend over the next however period of time, you've got to know all of the potential. It's important that the staff present you with all of the information that we possibly can to help you make the best decision possible. That's what I'm saying.
And I think what we asked of the group of the citizens was that by that June 5th meeting, we'd have more of I don't want to say concrete, but a stronger idea of exactly where they're at with their fundraising.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we gave them till June to do their fundraising. So we'll
Right.
know at that point in time if they're still sitting at their $600 and some $1,000 or if they've grown it. Because
Right.
then June is when we need to know where they're at. So as we're looking at our priorities for the budget, we kind of know where that money-wise is at.
So
That
was
makes
that
sense?
$850,000 projected need based on that,
Guesstimate.
a guesstimate based on that engineer or architect or
Based on
whomever?
Jeff Nelson's architectural report, yes.
Square footage time to price instead.
Yeah, and so it includes a variety of things. It includes some contingency, it didn't include any operational costs, and, and so that's basically where that number came from, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to know if that was a real concrete, but it's based on square footage on the average construction
Yeah,
cost. where
it
that
was
sits.
a little more detailed than that because it has some design numbers in there and it has some specific numbers broken down. It's not just a number times a square foot because it has like the cost of a kitchen and a cost of kitchen equipment and a whole variety of things. So it's a little more detailed than that. If you don't have a copy, I will make sure you have one. But it's a year old. And so I don't know what's changed in the last year, good or bad. So we won't know for sure, of course. If the city council says, yeah, we want to go ahead, we probably want to try to go out with a bid as soon as we possibly could to try to nail down a better price. But
So were
But
we
As
thinking,
far as, excuse me, as far as the extra budget meetings, you're requesting June 5th
yep,
and August 21st,
Yep.
and possibly September 18th.
yeah, September 18th if necessary. Yep, and the rest are just regular council meetings that you have to meet to talk about the budget anyway. Yep. And there's some staff meetings on there, just so you know what we're doing too, because we have a whole process that we have to go through with the staff too.
Right.
So that's what this is. And so that's what you can expect in the next few months on the budget.
so we were looking at getting a report from the building committee and where they're at financially.
We'll have that before this time period, yeah.
Right. So then what was the hope for beginning of construction, so to speak?
I think we're looking at earliest in 2024. If we do design, we'd want to do the design this year and construction next year, I think in all likelihood is what we're talking about.
Yeah. So not starting
If
the
the council says, yeah, go, That's how I would envision the schedule, Doesn't have to be that way, you could do something different, but I don't think you could do it any quicker than that.
No, that's just, I wanted the general outline, thank you.
Yep. That's how it's currently in the capital improvement 5-year plan too, is construction in 2024.
And is that truth and taxation being on the 11th, that's set by some kind of state code?
We have to have that before the end of the year, and so that's our last meeting in December, which is why we do it then.
Okay. That's the same night of our council meeting?
Yep.
So we just begin with that?
Yep.
Does that ever show
That's
up?
the certified budget.
I've only, in 3 years, I've had one person show up, and that was the guy from last year. So I can't speak for the other years that the council members have been here, but
Because that's when people, if they are questioning their taxes, right, their,
well, that's
property,
that's different. That's
or
the
their
Board of
value.
Equalization in that meeting, and that's on May 1st. That's actually worth a comment anyway, because we put something on Facebook about that today, and there's always a little bit of confusion about what that is. Well, I don't understand. The county does it. How come we do it? Well, the county does do it, but they do it. They do look at the assessed valuation. The county assessor will be here that night talking about it. Ultimately, you as a city council by law or the Board of Equalization, and what that means is that you don't set the values of the property. The assessor does that, but you can lower people's rates based on their requests. You have that authority.
So
I don't believe we do have that authority. I think we specifically don't. We can suggest, but I think ultimately, when I did my training, we actually don't have the authority.
Well, that's the way it's always been. Well, then what is their authority then?
I think we can suggest, but that's basically it. It's ceremonial almost at best, but.
Well, I mean, ultimately, if you suggest it, they're going to do it, I don't, it's never happened in the time that I've been here.
There you go. Well, and the ones that I've been a part of, the assessor in advance has it very, very clearly, like, kind, and quality. He'll have 8 properties that have sold, blah, 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 and it is an uphill battle. But it's been done. I've seen individuals that have
But that's-
really had.
I really want the citizens to understand that when they got their property taxes and stuff like that, that went up significantly, they need to pay attention to what the value of their house or whatever did, because
The new assessed value.
That's what set the amount, the
That's where the
increase,
increase was.
more than our 7% levy.
Yeah.
But people didn't realize how much their assessment of their house, and so they better be looking, because on that form, it also says what it's assessed for next year. And there's quite a jump from this year to next year, and this is that meeting that they need to come to, I don't want to say complain, to contest the value
contest.
of their houses, because the values of the houses really went up this last year, and they're going up again next year. And
There's-
this is where they need to start it.
The
It's
Board of
not just
Equalization,
us.
you're saying they need to attend.
And
The other
people
thing,
just got their new valuations, proposed valuations in the mail from the
Yeah.
county.
But this is a process that you have to go through by law, is what it amounts to.
No, but I just want people to realize they have that option
Sure they do.
versus
Yep.
contacting each of us
Yeah, sure they do.
with their
they do.
concerns and everything that, yes, I can answer why we went with the 7%, but I can't answer why their property values went up so much.
Yeah, that's why the assessor.
One of the things that, is it's a complicated process when you're talking about, what, you talk about the 7% that we increased this year. That doesn't necessarily equate to a 7%. In fact, it most likely will not equate to a 7% increase in the taxes. You as a city council, when you set the tax levy as part of the end of the year process for the following year, you're essentially just setting how much money you're collecting from the businesses and the property, individual property owners, residential properties in town, and that's it. The assessor, in terms of what the values are and things like that, the assessed valuation, that determines, how much that money is spread. And everybody else is doing the same kind of thing too, because you've got school taxes and you've got county taxes, so it's not even just ours,
No, they're all listed.
And I think people understand that part of it, but I think that they're like, oh my gosh, my city taxes went up 20%. Well, they might, but it's not because of anything the city council did, it's because of the value of their home went up at the same time. And it also depends on whether you have new construction. So, we might say we're going to increase it 7%, but if 3% we got new build, 3% assessed valuation that's brand new, that had never been on the tax rolls before in the last year, it's only going to affect those old properties by an additional 4%. So it's a complicated thing sometimes, and I am not the expert at all. I'm just figuring out a lot of this myself, but it's confusing. And so I can understand why people be like, I don't understand what the heck is going on here. I think somebody who invented it maybe made it so confusing so nobody would ask any questions. That's my cynical way of looking at it, but...
Well, people ask questions, just nobody can answer.
No one can answer them. No one can answer them. But the assessor will be here that night. So if you have questions about your taxes, that would be the time to come. And that's on May 1st at 7, right?
Yes.
At 7 o'clock here.
Any other discussions on this resolution for the budget?
I have nothing else.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-34 for the 2024 budget scheduling.
Second that.
First and seconded. Any other discussion? Call for the vote.
Teigs.
Aye.
Adisa.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Schultz.
Aye.
Landay.
Aye.
Pro Tem Mayor Dobson.
Yes. Is there anything else? I don't see the city attorney here.
Nothing else.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think we may have hit a record.
No, not even
Oh,
close.
no.
Not even close?
Not even
And we
close.
got out before this before?
Oh, heavens, yes.
Okay.
Not with